Yeah, we do have people joining us this afternoon from the US, various locations in the UK, including Dublin, Ireland, Scotland, and then others from Europe as well. So again, we're just waiting for some of those guys to connect. There's quite a few of you online, but yeah, if you could bear with us. It's not a bad place for us to be waiting this afternoon. The temperature is currently 25 degrees here.
How do we? There we go. Oh, I've joined.
Excellent. Good afternoon.
You can hear me, I take it.
I can hear you fine. Yes.
Good,
yeah.
lovely. I'm in the game.
So I've actually got set up in just one of the rooms in my house here, so it's a little bit darker. But yeah, we're currently enjoying clear blue skies here in the south of Portugal.
Hello, Simon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's another one. I can hear you, whoever that is.
Simon, this is George from South Africa.
Hi, how are you?
Can you?
Good to hear your voice, and for everybody else listening. So yeah, we've got Africa, we've got Europe, and we've got the US at the minute. Let's see if we get another few continents joining us this afternoon.
Hey, Chris, Abu Dhabi's on.
Hi, sorry, who is that? Sorry?
Tom in the UAE.
In the UAE. Oh, fantastic. Whereabouts? In Abu Dhabi or Dubai?
Yeah, Abu Dhabi, Chris.
Excellent. Well, good afternoon. So we just need Australasia now, and yeah, we'll have a full pack of cards.
We've actually got us up as George Riley. I don't know whether that's coming through your end, but our name is George Riley, but we're using our son's laptop. So,
George, I can see you, and perhaps your wife sat next to you.
Yeah, it's Kevin Riley.
Kevin. Okay.
We're using the boy's laptop.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good afternoon, Kevin. I can see you, and yeah, your partner sat next to you. Yeah, and you're coming through loud and clear.
Lovely.
Well, I've just looked at my phone, and it has just clicked through to 2 o'clock, and we do have a time frame on this afternoon. I think we're due in for around about 40 minutes. What we'll try and do is get obviously all of your questions and answers through to you this afternoon. Quite a lot of you have sent questions through, which I have gone through, and we will try obviously and answer those as best we possibly can. But yeah, I want to try and get through some of the basics with you, and then try and put some time aside at the end for anybody to jump in. Just so everybody's aware, this is being recorded today, so you will be able to access this on our website at a later date. Yeah, details will be sent to anybody that's logged on, so you will be able to go back and pick up on any questions or answers that you've missed during the process. Alternatively, you can email us. You'll find all the contact details at Ideal Homes International. And what I will do at the end as well is I'll just give you my own personal details. I am based here in Portugal, and if you want to talk about anything separately or privately, then you can message me and we can discuss on a one-to-one. And looking at the computer here, we still get people joining us from all over. So yeah, it should be a good afternoon session. So just to start really on Portugal itself, and I'm sure many of you probably have been to Portugal. I'm originally from London. My background in the UK was financial services. So I studied financial planning in the UK. I worked in and around the London area. But for me, growing up as a child, I used to come to Portugal and Spain on holidays. And just later on in life, I got, I guess, sick and tired of opening the curtains and seeing the grey clouds, and just hankered back to those holidays as a child. And that was literally my decision-making process. I left the UK 2005 to come through to Portugal. And I first arrived in the Algarve, southern tip of Portugal, into an area just south of Lule, a town called Almansil, and that's where it all started for me. So yeah, coming into year 16 now. Just a little bit more background information. I have had the opportunity in the last 15 years as well to travel. So I have done this particular position and worked in real estate, not only selling property, but working with developers and constructors and builders, both here in Portugal. And this is Portugal, Blue Coast, Silver Coast, Lisbon areas, so north and south in the country. I would say I know the whole of the country like the back of my hand. I can drive around the whole area. I do know it very, very well. I also did this out in the Cape Verde Islands. I spent a bit of time there working with a Portuguese developer building. I also did this in southern Italy with a developer there as well. And then I also spent 4 years actually in the UAE as well in Dubai. So I lived in Dubai Marina. And worked with a company there that was building, developing and selling property. So I've had quite a good background. I've been fortunate to travel through the States and most of Europe and a little bit around the Middle East. But after all of that traveling and the different experiences that I've had, when it came to sort of settling down and try and put some roots down, I chose to come back to Portugal. And I've been permanently in Portugal now since 2015. For those of you that don't know the Algarve, and I don't know whether you can see this or not on there very well, but this is the Algarve coastline at the bottom. I actually live in a small town called Salbrash de Alportel. I'm 20 minutes from Faro, which is the airport which looks after the south coast. I'm 2 hours south of Lisbon. Just to touch on locations, etc. The whole of the Algarve coastline is approximately 155 kilometers to 160 kilometers. So this is from the Spanish border in the east right across. So when we talk about distances, distances are never really too far. You can drive from here, from my property, straight through to Seville, which is a large city in Spain. I can be there within 2 hours. So it's good accessibility for me here. It works well being just off the coast for me. I live here permanently all year round. It may be different if you're looking to buy a holiday home here and you want to access the beaches, the water parks, etc. You might want to be a little bit closer. But again, for me, it was affordability and being able to look after the lifestyle that I wanted. There is a decent expat community when you just come off of that coast. I would say that Portugal, and specifically the Algarve, can be seasonal, and it does run from tourism. We have in excess of 30 championship golf courses. We have blue flag beaches, restaurants, water parks, zoos, etc. So a lot of the coastline is dependent on the touristic trade. But outside of the season, if you come off that coast, sort of 10-15 minutes inland, there is lots of activities which take place all year round. And again, yeah, decent expat communities. You may not all be looking at the Algarve either. I mean, Portugal has the Algarve, which is its main touristic destination. But then we have the Blue Coast, which is south of Lisbon, going up through Alentejo and up towards Setúbal, and then into Lisbon itself and the areas of Cascais, very, very popular. And then heading north from Lisbon, heading up to the Silver Coast, up through Óbidos, Foz do Areia, etc. And again, I've been fortunate to be sales manager in that region as well. And so I understand a lot of that part of the country. For me, the population down here in the Algarve suits me. It's not overpopulated. The population of the whole of Portugal is approximately 10.2 million. 2 million of those reside in Lisbon itself, 1.5 in Porto, We have a population of around 500,000 across the whole of the Algarve. And then the rest of the population is distributed throughout Portugal itself. If you think our neighbour Spain has a population in excess of 40 million. So we're quite a small country in comparison. It's a Catholic country. They hold a lot of family values. It's again, for myself, and this is always a personal thing for everybody, but it works for me. Again, coming from the UK and growing up as a child there, remembering Sunday afternoon spent with family, having dinner around the table, etc. Those times have gone, I believe. But for me, certainly here in Portugal, those times are still very prevalent, and it's still important to the Portuguese people. So it's a very nice, friendly, safe environment for me. Never look over my shoulder. I always say to people, there's 365 days in the year, 300 of them are good. The sun's out. We're currently at 25 degrees outside, so it's quite nice. And I don't mind telling you all that later on this afternoon, I will be in the garden. We do have, obviously, rain, and we have colder weather. We think we've just come through all of that, and that's gone now. So we always have sort of March, April, where we get the colder climate, and the rains come. And when it rains, it really does rain. And the same again at the end of the year, coming through October into November. The year as well is split when we talk about tourism. So we always have July, August, when we have that influx of families from around the world, and again from some of the people that are joining us from the US and South Africa, UAE, as well as mainland Europe. We do have visitors from all parts of the world coming here. July, August is typically, perhaps I class as bucket and spade brigade, families with the kids who want to spend some time on the beach, out in the restaurants, etc., at the water parks, at the zoos, and all the other sort of facilities and bits and bobs we have here. So that's sort of June into July, August, and through into September. You have what we call the shoulder season just outside of that, where you have perhaps the elder clients that want to come because they still want to enjoy the weather, but they don't want the noise associated with the busy summer periods. So that's sort of May, June time, and September into October. You have the golfing season as well, which is, again, just outside of those two areas, February, March into April, very, very busy times for golf. And then October, November. We always have the Portuguese Open down here in the Algarve in October or November. So that can be also busy times. And then again, Christmas, throughout the Christmas period. We have a lot of visitors coming out and spending time with the families. So the Algarve, Portugal in general, does have a year-round sort of attraction for myself and for others. And it works. Again, just talking on location and looking at other areas into Europe. I mean, if you look at where Portugal is in Europe, just down in the corner, you can jump on a flight from the UK, 2.5 hours, and you're here in the Algarve, or 2 hours 15 minutes, and you can be into Lisbon. But that's the same for many of our European sort of friends as well. So coming from Germany or France, or even from Rome, 2.5 hours flight, and you can be here in southern Portugal. And it's a big attraction for many. So that's a little bit just about myself and some general bits and bobs on Portugal and the region and where we're located. A lot of you have come up with questions for, and we'll try and run through this in terms of how some of the questions have come through. So we wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the things to do, the beaches, the attractions, what the Algarve has to offer. Quite a few people have talked about, if I'm coming here as a holiday home and just going to be visiting for 2, 4, 6 weeks in the year, or relocation. So we'll touch on some bits and bobs around those parts. There's a few questions there relating to healthcare as well, for people who might be looking to retire or relocate. So we'll touch on some of those as well. The idea behind some of these seminars is that we'll continue to do these. It is obviously tough times at the minute not just here in Portugal, but globally. We were in a state of emergency due to the coronavirus, but we actually come out of the state of emergency tomorrow. We are in a bank holiday weekend here as well. So they have actually put restrictions in terms of you cannot leave your local district. So if you're in Lule, stay in Lule. If you're in Faro, stay in Faro. But that will all change with effect from Monday. We have been very, very fortunate here. The government were quite strict in terms of the lockdown, and they jumped on it early. Of course, we've had cases here, and unfortunately, we've had deaths in the country as well. And I don't know if you've kept an eye on the media and seen sort of the numbers here, but as at 12 o'clock last night, we've actually unfortunately lost 1,006. But when I look at some of the other countries around the world, we've been very, very good. We haven't suffered as others have. And the government is sort of looking at slowly bringing us back in. So we have, currently we have banks, supermarkets, pharmacies, takeaway service from restaurants available at the minute. From next week, there'll be other services opening. For us here as a company and how we're dealing with the clients at the minute, we still continue to sell. And right from the start of the pandemic, even up to this week, we have been selling property and land. The difference is a lot of those people have already been here before. They may know the areas, they've seen property they like. And we've been able to do video tours and everything via internet and email. So the market is still continuing, albeit, yes, very, very slow. Because historically this is a good time of year for us. Without the summer months, people always want to come out before or after to take care of transactions. But yeah, at the minute we do what we can. If people do want to take part in viewing property via video links, then again, you can contact us. We are conducting, and I myself have conducted many tours in the past few weeks. We'll take people along to the property, we'll video it. You can walk around the house effectively. We do videos of surrounding areas. And then again, if you want any help with buying process, etc., which we will touch on a little bit later on, then we can help you at that point. Just before I move into some of the attractions, is there anything that anybody wants to ask at this moment in time, or are you okay for me to just carry on? Okay. I'm sure there are going to be questions at the end of this, but that's okay. Again, we'll get through them all. So just talking about the attractions, and for those of you that have been into Portugal before, both the Algarve and north, going up through the wine-growing regions of Alentejo and up to Lisbon and beyond. Again, the Algarve is very much catered for the touristic sort of visitors. It's a very historic part of the country. There are some fantastic areas to look at. Lule with its castles and sylvs, some of the market towns, Lagos, etc., and Tavira with its 37 churches. So there's a lot of history down here in the Algarve, which a lot of people really don't know about or don't explore. But again, you can contact me for details depending on your own personal requirements. If you want walking, if you want history, if you like your beaches, restaurants, etc. So there's lots of things to do down here in the Algarve. Obviously, moving up into Lisbon, population of 2 million, it's quite a big city. It's a beautiful city. Lots of shopping, lots of restaurants, a lot of historic monuments, etc. to go and see. And you'll find this as you go all the way through Portugal as well. There are an awful lot of attractions to living here. Where I am, which is in the east of the Algarve, some of the beaches here are some of the best in the whole of the Algarve region. Cabanas beach is beautiful. You could walk out into the middle of the sea, open your eyes, and you'd think you'd be on a Caribbean island. So there are some fantastic beaches here. Moving across the centre, you've got Felicia Beach and down to Albufeira, Galley Beach.
Simon?
Yes, sorry.
Simon, I just wanted to ask you, You mentioned where you are, but I just
Yes.
didn't catch that. Where are you?
Sorry, I'm in São Brás. So this is a typical small Portuguese market town, which is just east of Lule. So I'm 10 minutes to the east of Lule. And I'm just about 15 kilometers north of Faro, which is the main county town for the Algarve. So that's the coast. And I'm about 30 minutes from the Spanish border.
How far are you from Vila Moura?
Vila Moura, I can be in Vila Moura Marina in about 30 minutes, door to door.
30 minutes, you say?
Yes, yeah. So for me, where I am, the location works perfectly. I have great access out to the east and through. If I want to go to Lisbon, I can jump straight onto the freeway. We have the A22, which runs across the Algarve. That's a toll road. We do have the N125 as well, which is a non-toll road, which will take me along the coast. But that also intersects with the A2 and will take me straight up to Lisbon. So from my house, if I had to be in Lisbon at 9 o'clock in the morning, I could leave mine at 7 and I'd be into the center of Lisbon at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm just going to touch actually quickly whilst we're talking about this on the transport as well, because yes, we do have good access on the road system here. But we do also have a good rail network here. And we have a train which goes right across the Algarve in the south. You can intersect that as well down at Lule or Faro and take a train straight up to Lisbon, which I actually did in February. And a first class ticket set me back 27 euros. And I traveled up to Lisbon. It was 2 hours, 48 minutes, which again took me straight into the central Lisbon. So the travel network is pretty good. There is a local bus service as well, or you can pick up coaches from Central Faro or the airport, taxi service, etc., and an abundance of hire cars, as many as you will know. So for me, I'm being here for quite a period of time, and everything normally is just time, getting to understand how things work, how to get about, etc. But it does work well. The train system is extremely punctual. If it says it's going to be there at 13:42, then it's there at 13:42, and it works well. So yeah, that's just a little bit about the travel itself. Again, just talking about some of the local attractions, and a lot of you will know this. We have in excess of 30 plus championship golf courses here for those golfers amongst you. We have in excess of 100 beaches on the Algarve, of which 88 of those hold blue flags. I think the thing with the Portuguese, and certainly within the more touristic destinations, in order to win repeat business, they have to keep things nice and clean and tidy. And they do a good job of that. And any of you that have visited some of the towns of, say, Tavira out in the east, or Lagos down in the west, or certainly again, George, looking down to Quinton, Valdelobo, Vila Moura, Almansildan in the centre there, they do a great job of looking after the Algarve and making it attractive, and making sure that people come back year after year. We tend to find as well that a lot of the buyers that do come across are people that have been visiting the Algarve for many, many years, 5, 10 years, or indeed their whole lives. And after a period of time, they'll say, well, we've been coming here for so many years and staying in hotels, etc. But now we really want to make that move and come and live permanently, perhaps if they're approaching retirement or relocation, or indeed buying that holiday home and coming and spending more time throughout the year. There is a great rental market here as well. And again, we've already touched on the different rental sort of periods, or different times of the year when people come. But there are many places, I think, throughout the world where there'll be destinations perhaps for the summer. Whereas here in the Algarve, and again, looking up through Silver Coast and Blue Coast and up to Lisbon, we have such a good number of visitors throughout the year that people are quite amazed in the whole. So that's really talking a little, obviously there are here. The still onto the Atlantic Sea, not quite as far along as the Mediterranean, but we do get some of that nice weather coming through from Spain, which we have to thank them for today, and the temperatures do get good. I'm going to start to go through some of the things in relation to property itself now, because again, a lot of you are here today because you've been here before, you're interested in buying property and interested in investing in property here. So the way I wanted to do this was really just to have a look at, first off, areas to purchase in, then have a quick look. We'll talk a little bit about, for those of you that want any information on banks or mortgages, etc. Banks are still lending here, mortgages are still readily available. And then from there, perhaps we'll talk a little bit about residency. I see I have a few questions here with regards to healthcare, etc. Again, I'll just stop there and just ask, is there any further questions at this moment in time, or are you quite happy for us to carry on as we are? Normally when people come out, excellent, thank you. Normally when people come out, I have maybe people come for 2 or 3 days, and they'll come on to one of our buying trips.
Can I just ask that you include, for people that are looking to come and live there, tax and inheritance tax?
Okay. Sorry, who am I speaking with there, sorry?
It's Kevin McLaughlin.
Kevin, okay. Well, I'll answer your question straight off on inheritance tax. Inheritance tax has actually been scrapped here in Portugal. There is no inheritance tax, which is a nice thing to hear, I'm sure. A lot of people, I will just keep going with that one, just to answer that question. A lot of people will have a separate will here in Portugal based on their Portuguese property, which you can do with a lawyer here. And if your property or your asset here in Portugal is going direct to bloodline, i.e. to spouse, should something happen to both of you, if it goes to next of kin, then there is no inheritance tax. It's just one of the benefits to buying here. So yeah, it's a good thing. One thing that we may have to do, and again, I'm just obviously conscious of the time that we have available here, is that, yeah, if you want to contact me later with specifics, we can do this one-on-one. We can answer questions over the email as well. For any of you that have a pen there, my name is Simon Quinton. My email address is simon.quinton@idealhomesinternational.com, sorry, .co.uk. Again, you can contact us on our website, so www.idealhomesinternational.com. And again, there you'll be able to contact one of us, be it me or one of my colleagues. We are still all working, and we are still all working 7 days a week. But yeah, if there's any particular questions, we will have a question and answer at the end. If I can answer them now, I will. I'll only ever try and give you factual information, and I'll just be honest with you and tell you if I can't answer it, then bear with me. I'll get the information you need and I'll come back to you. Okay, so just moving on to the buying process. The Portuguese buying process is a very simple process. They've tried to make it that way because it's not just the Portuguese that are buying. There are people buying from many different parts of the world. A lot of people will come across on the 2 or 3 day inspection trips with us. During that time, they'll come and view different properties, have a look at different areas, understand if that meets their own particular requirements. And then they'll perhaps make an offer on a property, but obviously with jumping on a plane 2 to 3 days later, they need to understand the process and to know that somebody is here to look after it for them. There's only 3 stages to the buying process. Any property that you do see with us or on our website, we already have to, and by law, we actually have to do some background checks on that property. So we have to make sure that it's a legal property, that the paperwork is in where it should be, that what was built was agreed. So there's lots of little checks that we have to do first in order to even advertise that house. So a lot of the process is already taken care of before you actually visit the house. A client can come across and have a look at a property, or even online, as we have done recently. They can have a look at a property and decide that's the property that's right for them, make an offer on the property, and reserve it and take it out of the market. So you can reserve a property with a small down payment, never pay a real estate agent, never pay any money to a real estate company. This is always done through a lawyer. The lawyers are always independent as well. They're not our lawyers, they're your lawyers. And typically the buyer and the seller will both have their own lawyer representing them. Again, over the years, we've met many different lawyers here, so we can make recommendations to you on who to use. But at the end of the day, it is your choice. So you can take a property out of the market here in Portugal, and this is not just Lisbon or the Algarve. You can make an offer on a house. You can reserve that property and take it out of the market. That will ensure that the seller doesn't sell it to anybody else. But what it does is it gives your lawyer the opportunity to do the correct checks on the house. So effectively reporting to you on title. So checking the no debt on the property, what was built was correct, the owner of the property, and so on. So all of the checks to make sure that you could actually complete that transaction and take it through to a deed. So they report to you in a promissory contract. If there are any problems with the house up until that point, the lawyer can come back to you and say, well, there is a problem with this house, it's not legal. My advice to you would be to not proceed with this sale, and in which point they would legally refund you your reservation deposit, and you'd move on to have a look at another property. If everything is correct and in order, then you go to promissory contract, which is signed by the buyer and the seller and is done by your lawyer. And at that point, you would pay a percentage of the price of the property, which is normally between 20 and 30%. The reason for that, and just to touch on mortgages, is because the banks here will lend up to 80% of the price of a property. 70 to 80%. 70%, I'll be honest, is the norm if people are looking for mortgages here. A lot of people are taking advantage of mortgages at the minute because the interest rates are so low. You can typically get between 1.1, 1.2% on a capital repayment mortgage. The mortgages are up to the age of 80. So they'll take 80 and work backwards, and that can be the maximum term. The affordability ratio, one thing that they want to do is to make sure people do not overstretch themselves. So they'll look at a 35% affordability ratio. So they'll take your current situation, they'll minus off perhaps your current mortgage in the UK, perhaps loans, etc., any sort of expenditure you have, and they'll look at a 35% of what's left, and that would be what you'd be able to have on a mortgage. But again, that just refers back to the 20 or 30% deposit on promissory contracts. There are many banks here, Millennium, Banco Popular, Banef, Novo Banco. If anyone does want any details on mortgages, etc., again, please get in contact. We have a team here, it's an independent team who will look through the different mortgages that are available and tell you what you can and can't have. They can go through quite a simple procedure with you and tell you whether or not you can actually have a mortgage, which will help when you're trying to budget for your property. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
I'll probably have some questions, but I'll get to you on email.
No problem at all. Thank you, George.
Okay.
So if we just refer back to the buying process, so we found a property, we've made an offer, the offer has been accepted, everything has gone through to the lawyer is happy with everything, and he'll draw up a promissory contract signed by both parties. You'll pay the agreed instalment, and then it's just a case of getting all the rest of the paperwork together to move that forward to the deed. The quickest I've actually sold a house is agreed to sell with a client on a Monday, and the following Monday we've actually gone to the deed. So the process, if everything is in order and the property has all the correct paperwork, can be quick. The typical process, however, can be between 4 and 8 weeks. The actual buying process as well and the time can all be agreed on the promissory contract. So a client might want time to move out, the buyer might want time to get funds together, etc., etc. So you can have a loose agreement in terms of when you complete on that property, but it's open, it's there to be discussed and agreed. The other nice thing here in Portugal as well is if you do agree on a sale, and this covers the buyers, so anybody that is looking to buy a property, if you get to promissory contract and sign the promissory contract, 99% of the time that sale will go through and the property will be yours. If the seller agrees terms with you and then tries to pull out of that sale, he has to pay you back double what you have paid on your promissory contract. So that's just a safeguard for you to make sure that there's no messing about. Once you've actually secured that property, the property will be yours. And just to make sure that the seller doesn't effectively gazump you and try and sell the property to somebody at a higher price. So there's lots of nice safeguards here. A lot of them are aimed at the buyer. So the sellers do have to be sure that they want to sell the property before they come to us and advertise. So the buying process is pretty straightforward. I have got details here which I can email through and breakdowns which will help people, and we can do scenarios for you as well based on your particular budget. So if you're looking at a house at 200,000, 300,000 or whatever it may be, we can break it all down for you so you can see how that process works and the different costs associated with it. There are obviously buying costs associated with the purchase of a house. Where in Spain it's typically 10-12%. In Portugal, I would bank on around 6 to 7%. So 6 to 7% would cover your lawyers' fees, notary fees, transfer taxes, all the costs associated with buying a house. Again, that's all taken care of by your lawyer. And again, anybody that wants any specifics based on a budget that you might have in mind, feel free to contact me. I'm more than happy to run some scenarios for you. And again, it just helps with your overall sort of budgeting. So that's a little bit just on the buying process. We had quite a few questions here. People looking at where's the best value at the minute. No vehicle. I don't have a vehicle. When I come there, I don't want to use one. So local transport, and hopefully we've covered that already. Management companies as well. So people who are buying houses for perhaps rental income, they might come and spend 4 to 6 weeks in the year here. For the rest of it, who's going to take care of it? So I'm going to sort of briefly go through some of those with you. Best value properties. I mean, it's always there are obviously always popular resorts. There are always perhaps upmarket resorts, but everything is always personal to each individual. Certainly here on the Algarve, we have areas like Quinton, Val de Lobo. I have properties there in excess of 10 million euros. 3 swimming pools, underground gym facilities, tennis courts, etc. So we have some really nice properties here. And then again, when you go up north through to Lisbon Central and areas of Cascais, some fantastic apartments, some fantastic villas, etc. But at the same time, if you come away from some of those areas, a lot of the value that we're finding here at the minute, specifically in the Algarve, is the shoulder to that central area. So if we're looking to the east, sort of Cabanas, Tavira, etc., towns and villages which are right on the coast, very accessible, walking distance to the sea, walking distance to towns and villages, restaurants, etc., but not as populated as perhaps some of the more central areas. And again, then going out to the west, so areas like Lagos, for instance. Lagos, very, very popular at the minute. There's a lot of building and development going on in both of these areas, but we can find property there, apartments ranging from 180, 190,000 euros, which is great value, because if I pick some of those up and move them into some central areas, we can be doubling or trebling the price of those. I know obviously it's the same anywhere in the world. If you're looking at property in central London, for instance, where I came from, or perhaps property a bit further up north. So location is always key, but I think the nice thing about the Algarve, Portugal in general, nothing is ever too far away. So a lot of people would rather say, well, look, okay, I have a budget of XYZ to buy a house. I'd rather use that to enable me to buy a good standard property just outside of perhaps the more popular central areas, and use the additional funds that I have to come and enjoy more of the Algarve. Again, if anybody is looking at specific areas, do let me know, and I can have a look at what best value we have in any given area. The one thing I would say about property, not just relate, I talk a lot about the Algarve because I'm here, but again, going back in history, I've spent a lot of time up in the north as well. But the problem with Portugal, and perhaps as opposed to somewhere like Spain, is that we don't have a huge supply of properties. The properties are being built now. I've been there over the last 2 or 3 weeks to see some new developments which are coming up in both the east and west. So we continue to build new properties, villas, apartments, etc., and hotels. All of you obviously can go onto the internet and have a look at numbers, so visitor numbers to the Algarve and Lisbon areas. Look at the number of people that have been coming into Lisbon Airport, Faro Airport, over the last 5 years, and it's arrows obviously going up. I know obviously at the minute it's a little bit different, but year in, year out, we continue to smash records in terms of number of visitors, number of rounds of golf being played, number of plates of food being eaten, etc. So the Algarve has continued to be, and Portugal, a place of interest for many people from many parts of the world. It is a very safe place to be. We don't have any problems that others may have in other countries. I'm quite happy to tell you I'll go to the beach, I'll put my towel down and put my phone and my wallet on there, spend some time in the sea and come back and I know it's still there. Of course, there is always petty crime that happens anywhere in the world, but it is an area where I do feel very, very safe. And again, a Catholic country, people do have a lot of Catholic values, but for me, a very, very safe area. Just touching on property again, though, if anybody does want specifics on any areas, feel free to contact me and I will let you know what's coming up in those areas, as well as what's currently on the books or what is available. There are obviously resale properties here as well. These might offer some areas for people for good investment currently. Everybody's situation is different. Some people might be suffering currently due to the current pandemic that we have. So we have had situations where clients have come to us and said, well, I need to sell. So we have, and if you look onto our website, you'll see some recently reduced properties there. We have also been able to convince a few of the developers in light of current situation, what can you offer? Some of them have given us some small price reductions, but again, it's supply and demand. We don't have a huge supply, and we do have a big demand. So in spite of that, we have been able to get some reductions on some properties. And then people are offering incentives, again, similar to my colleague in Spain. They might be offering air conditioning or free property management for a year, and so on. I've just mentioned management there, and that was one of the questions that came through to us. There are many management companies here in the Algarve and Lisbon to take care of your property should you not be here. If you do go onto our website, you can see some details there, which will give you some information in terms of property managing, somebody to look after the house when you're not there, organize cleaners, organize renting, advertising your property, meeting clients, meets and greets. So we do actually have an in-house team that does that. There are obviously independent people here as well, but that again is something that we can help you with once you've actually made a decision on your property. There's a couple of other things I just wanted to talk about here. I see that, yeah, looking at my phone, I've already been talking for 43 minutes. As I say, normally I have to talk for 2 to 3 days, so I think I've got off quite lightly today. But this is the start of quite a few seminars that we will be doing, and I am happy to talk to each individually. A couple of other things that people have just asked about, schools, for those of you that are relocating. We do obviously have public schools here, and we do have private schools. In particular, just here where I am on the Algarve, we have 2 international schools. They actually run the UK curriculum, and you can opt for UK or Portuguese curriculum. Just talking about that and talking about language, UK or English is widely spoken throughout the Algarve and the whole of Portugal. Obviously, in more touristic destinations, the UK language, or English language, sorry, is very widely spoken. In fact, I remember when I first came here and I went to the cinema, expecting to watch a film with subtitles. It was actually the other way around. If you go to the cinema here in Portugal, the film will be in English with Portuguese subtitles. So it does, I mean, again, I'm from London, I'm from the UK, and perhaps we're a little bit lazy when it comes to languages. But for those of you who do worry about languages, it's not something that you really have to worry about here, unless you get into a really rural area. English is pretty widely spoken. Again, anyone that wants details with regards to schools, public or private, do get in touch with us. I did have a colleague here who was actually a teacher in one of the private schools as well, so we have good access and good knowledge on that. There was a few questions as well with regards to healthcare. And funny enough, actually, I was just printing off a few things this morning. Portugal actually ranks higher in terms of healthcare facilities than the UK in Europe. And I know we're coming out of Europe, or you guys are coming out of Europe, but we actually ranked 13th in terms of best healthcare in Europe. So we beat Spain, Italy, Ireland, UK. So the system does work well. I'm obviously a resident of Portugal, and I have access to the Portuguese healthcare system. We have private hospitals here as well, and private practitioners. For me, the healthcare system works fine. I don't have any issues with it. When I came back to Portugal, I bought a house. As soon as I bought a house, I was able to become resident, full-time resident. I've completed 5 years now, actually, and I will be now, or in the process of applying for the 10-year. But for those of you traveling from outside of Portugal, so if you own a property, if you're EU-based or non-EU based with Brexit, or certainly from other parts of the world, so UAE, the US, or even from down in Africa, the Portuguese healthcare system is open to everybody. I'm not sure for those coming from Africa or perhaps the Americas. Certainly those coming from Europe, you can get a European health card, the EHIC card, which you can apply for online. that just enables you to come across to Portugal, enjoy your holiday, but should you need access to the healthcare system while you're here, you can go to a local doctor's, local hospital, give your card, and you'll receive the treatment that you need. You do have to pay a small fee, but the fee could be anywhere from €5 to €15. So we're not talking about a lot of money. If you wanted to visit a private doctor whilst you were here, there is a little bit more expense. It's normally around 35 to €40. But the health system does work well here. I have had a few experience of it. I haven't had any issues with it. But again, if anybody has any further questions on healthcare, then again, feel free. I'm just trying to get through as much as I can in this short time period that we have. I'm just noticing also, actually, there's a chat here, which is coming up and throwing some questions to me as we go along. What fee do you charge for selling? Well, we don't charge a fee, which is nice. The buyers never actually pay a fee. This is something that the seller picks up. So the seller has to pay an agreed percentage to us. It's not set in stone at all. It is affected, or we are affected, obviously, during negotiations as well, but that's purely between the buyer, sorry, the seller and the agent. You yourselves, the only fees that you'll pay is your actual buying fees. I'm just having a look at some of the other questions there. Yeah, okay, so you've got, I don't know if the rest of you actually can look at the chat at the bottom there. There is actually my email address has been put on there on the website so that everybody there can get in contact with me if they wish. I've also had a question, is there an app you can download so you can give you train stations along the Algarve? Yes, there is. I will respond to some of these chats actually once the chat's over. But yeah, there are a list of stations to help you travel around. There's a few others here that are asking me to get back to them. So that's fine. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that they were covered as well. At this point, is there, again, because we are limited, in fact, we've overrun, but it's okay. The sun is shining. Everybody has a smile on their face, so that's good. Is there anything else to start whilst we still have time on here, specifically that people wanted to ask, or feel free to go onto the chat and note there? Okay, so again, there are still quite a few things coming through on the chat. I'm just going to ask our administrator actually if she can copy that chat line, just so that I make sure that I get all of the questions answered. I've had 3 new messages in the last 30 seconds. There you go. So yeah, I think really from some of the questions and bits and bobs that have come through to me, that we've covered quite a bit of that. As I said, we will actually come back and we will do some more of this. I think we're going to do this on a weekly basis. So you can contact me. I am here. And if there is anything specific that you want to discuss, then I'm happy to do that with you. I've just had a message there from my administrator that yes, we can get a copy of all of those questions that have sent through. So whilst we're all still on here, if there is anything that people want to pop on the chat there, she's going to download all of those and send them to me. And yes, it is a bank holiday weekend, but I'll try and get them all answered in the next 24, 48 hours for you. For anybody that is looking to come over to the Algarve, at the minute, we are obviously still in a lockdown phase. People are not able to travel in and out. I keep an eye on some of the news blogs and bits and bobs to see who's talking about travel. We're waiting for obviously people to be safe. So yeah, keep an eye on that, because we do have the offers and the buying process the buying trips where people can come across 2 or 3 days. We'll tour you around whichever region you like. We'll look at different houses, etc. for you, introduce you to mortgage people, introduce you to lawyers. So we do have that availability there. I think that will be up and running again as soon as we have access to planes, quite frankly. In the meantime, if anybody does want video tours of any properties, they can go onto the website and have a look. Feel free to send me the IDH reference, the reference number of that property, and we'll quite gladly do some video tours for you. So yeah, but for now, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. I hope it's the start for you. It's always difficult, I know, but you have to start somewhere. So we'll try and get information through to you and drip feed some information through to you. Specifics, feel free to contact me. And hopefully we'll see you all again next week. We're going to perhaps try and do a little bit more work on some new developments and bits and bobs that we've got coming up here in the Algarve, as well as some of the properties that we've got new coming up in the north, so Silver Coast, Blue Coast and Lisbon. We are going to talk a little bit more in depth with relation to taxation, so taxation on property, taxation on rental income, a little bit more about residency, how you obtain residency, what happens if you want to relocate, if you want just a holiday home, etc. So we're going to try and go more into depth in some of these areas for you, and hopefully that way, once we get through our current situation, that when you do come, you'll be well informed and you'll be able to make the decision to go ahead and buy that property, and hopefully it will be with me. But for now, I'm certainly going to enjoy the rest of the day here in the Algarve. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure meeting you all. And as they say in Portugal, bom fim de semana, which is have a good weekend. And we hope to see you all again soon. Thank you very much. I know everybody's on mute, so I can see a lot of people waving at me. So I'll just I'll wave back general. There we go. But yeah, at least you can put a name to the face. And yeah, anybody that needs anything, then feel free to contact us.
Thanks, Simon. It was great.
Thank you, George. Look forward to speaking to you again.
We'll get back to you on email.
No problem at all.
Simon, can I just confirm with you? Simon, can I just confirm with you that some of the questions we asked on the email you sent will be will be replied to by email, will they?
Absolutely, yeah. If you have sent an email to us on specifics, and yeah, I'd say
it's just something we never covered today. Yeah,
there is quite a list there. So yeah, what we're going to do after the weekend is to go through all of those. It will be myself and some of the marketing team, which will go through, and we'll make sure that all of those questions are answered. So yeah, I have the email addresses here if anybody that has asked specifics. I'll try and get all of those answered. It perhaps will not be until Monday until that comes back to you. But we'll certainly go through any questions that have been asked via email, and we'll get them back to you, and then at least then we can start a conversation and you can ask further questions if needed.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Ciao.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. It was nice.